Hey, you guys, welcome to this episode of The Rachel Cruze Show. And I'm so excited because in this episode, I have my friend Mallory Ervin here. Girl, thanks for being here. Okay, so my thing when I have people on the show and I'm like, my friend is here, because there's a lot of people that are wonderful, but I've just met and I never like to just throw out the word friend. So I always say they are my friends only if I have their cell phone number. So we're friends.
Yeah, we're friends. I just texted you.
I know.
We're definitely friends.
So I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad you're here.
Yes.
I know.
You still haven't invited me to your new house. You did invite me out one night. You had a baby. Well, when you got 100 kids between the two of you, it's really hard to.
It's true. And there was one night, Winston and I were without kids. Our plans fell through. We were having dinner and we were like, we just need to go hang out with people.
Them.
And this, and I was like, I'm going to text Mallory. It didn't work out.
All time. I know. And I really wish it would have. I was like, I hope she asks me again. And
it'll happen.
You never got a babysitter again.
It'll happen. And it'll happen, though, because, it's going to be a little while because you got a lot going on. You got baby number 3. You got another little baby right here.
Oh,
your
man.
New book.
That one was hard to birth. That one's harder to birth than the 2 C-sections I had prior to this one, I feel like. Yeah.
I know. There's so much. I can't wait to dive into your life, though, because Mallory is obviously an author. Her new book, Living Fully, is out, and I can't wait. Can't wait to dive into that. But you also were Miss Kentucky. You were 3 seasons on The Amazing Race, all of it, and you have an amazing podcast, Living Fully.
Yes,
and
that you were on.
all of this stuff, which is so fun. So just kind of talk me through this theme for you of Living Fully. Obviously, is near and dear to your heart, not just podcasts, the book, and everything. So what does that mean? Like when you say this, what does that living fully, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it means different things to me at different points in my life, but it's always just living a bigger life. It's not accepting easy and comfortable as the way that your life is going to be. It's about choosing something bigger for yourself, I think so many times we fall into what's easy and what's comfortable, and we don't open door number 2 because door number 1 is familiar, and it's like opening door number 2. It's a whole different way to live. And my story's kind of funny because you don't usually go from pageants to reality shows to, blogger, author. It's kind of a funny path, but it all informed what's in this book. So it's the catalyst to what I feel living fully is, because I had this life that was amazing, that a lot of people do, where nothing's bad going on, so everything's good, Yeah. Everybody thinks the absence of bad is a qualifier for good in your life, and I don't think that is. I lived that way for a long time. And so over the last 8 years or something, I'm living a normal life, business owner and mom of 2, almost 3, and just now, though, living fully to me is something different. It's just choosing to live a different way. It's choosing to not accept cruise control and the comfortable and the familiar, to not let fear drive all my decisions, to take chances and to face adversity and to, all these things that sound common in the self-help space. But I promise you I've had a different journey to these things. And I tell all these stories in Living Fully, but it's just a bigger life. It's just a fuller, more grounded, more rich way to live.
So these days, every dollar matters, and taking care of your family matters too. With Christian Healthcare Ministries, you can care for your family's health and bank accounts. To learn more, go to chministries.org/Rachel. And for you, because you're saying, you don't want to just be on cruise control. So how do you balance this idea of I do want to achieve and I do want to do great things, but it not be unhealthy? Is it because you're achieving in different ways now, where you're not just on cruise control? Does that make sense?
And I went to treatment for 6 months. They really got the shovel and really dug it all up for me. The 2 biggest things that came out of this whole treatment stint for me, it wasn't even sobriety. I really think that it's always the underlying stuff,
Yes.
know? And one of those things was, I opened this whole book with this story about how I had long blonde hair extensions for 10 years, never had gone a day without them. And 2 months into treatment, they know what they're doing there with you. They know this is what this girl needs to work on, And it was a special case for them because, here I was. I had become the shining star of the treatment facility. So I was happy things were going great.
Popular of the
I was I'm going to take care of this problem and I'm going to write a book and everything is going to be fantastic. This is just going to make my street cred even better. It's just, I just really didn't get that they were really going for me. They took this, they had my chair turned around because they knew, the treatment people, I couldn't watch, They turned my chair around and I looked in the mirror at myself with this 2-inch long, fried off hair for the first time. And that was the biggest breakdown that I had in that whole thing. My attachment to remaining this person that I was, and this person that in a
Wow.
way almost killed me. I was so attached, and I wanted to be that person. And when they stripped that away from me with that last hair extension, it was a weird thing. Who would think you'd have an out-of-body, on the floor, like, experience? But that was a big breakthrough for me. And I did a lot of work around that. So the only way that I think I'm able to, because I'm still in a public place now, but it's a very healthy place.
Sure.
And it's a totally different experience for me. But it's because I did a lot of work around it. And I know the tools, and I know my triggers too, when I'm getting attached to something, because I get attached to things, good and bad, all the time. And I'm now able to spot those things and get out of that, before it gets too bad.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like we're even in a culture where attaching to these things, and something that seems so simplistic, like your blonde hair extensions, right? Whatever it is, these things become part of our identity. And once you start stripping that away, you start to realize, gosh, has my joy, my identity been placed in just this stuff? How much have I put in this, whether it's accolades or hair extensions, whatever that may be. When I talk to people on their money journey, like, there's a level of sacrifice for some people to say, hey, to get yourself above water financially, stop doing stuff. So the stuff that you used to do, whether it was you always went on this certain vacation, you're going to post it for everyone to see. Part of that's your identity. And when you say no to that, you're stripping that away, right?
Absolutely.
All of this. And so there's a healthy level, I think, for everyone, no matter where you are in life, to say, God, what am I attached to? What is this unhealthy thing that I'm grabbing onto that I actually need to release and let go? And that, not that thing is bad, but what am I doing to hold on to that? And so it's such a fascinating conversation. And I think it's this whole, like, 360 healthy perspective to have on your life.
And it's choosing. So, like, if you're in your courses and you're looking at those things, who would think a vacation's a bad thing with your family? Who would think that, the fruits of your labor, driving a nice car or whatever.
Right.
But you have to choose. They want to choose to be financially stable and feel good. Like, that feels so much better on the other side. And you know that.
Yes.
So it's like, me in treatment, they're like, we've got to get past this for you to get on the other side of this. It's like just choosing, I want to live fully. I want to live a bigger life more than I want to be attached to these things that make me feel good right now.
So all we're talking about, though, is there's a level of this, you guys, that is hard. And so talk me through working and pushing through hard, uncomfortable things is worth it. Because I talk about that a lot, that change.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said earlier, when you're familiar with something, it's comfortable. Naturally, that's a human aspect, right?
Yes.
But we stay in things that are comfortable, even if they're wrong, right? Even if they're damaging us, we still stay because we know it's so predictable. So when you're changing something, whether it's something emotionally in your life, financially, whatever it may look like, that change is going to be hard. You're going to feel that friction. So talk me through and kind of encourage everyone watching and listening to this, that even though it's hard, it's worth it to keep pushing through that.
Well, I know in my own life, being on the other side of things that happened in my life, I know every single time I walk through something that I was afraid to walk through, or I face any kind of adversity, I know it from experience that it's always better on the other side. We can hear 100,000 times, when you walk through the fire, like, you're stronger, but until you experience it yourself, you just can't seem to believe it. So I always tell people, if you have any experience like that, if you can pull from that experience, everybody has something like that I feel like they've been through before, they've made it through it. But anytime you're standing at a crossroad, nobody's going to say, you know what? I'm going to go the adversity road. Like,
That's
it's
right.
not
I'm going to
easy.
choose that. Yeah.
It's always, especially nowadays, I feel like in our generation, you and I are the same age, people just value that easy and comfortable. I do think that social media is part of that because you only see the easy. You only see easy life. No one shows the hard stuff on social media, and we look at it so much. But I wrote a whole chapter too. I know that you love your family, and you have these family roots too. And I wrote this chapter. It's called Endangered Species, and it's about the generation of, like, our grandparents. And they experienced adversity and change and all of these things that I feel like would just stop us dead in our tracks today. And it was just their life. They didn't flinch at these things. My grandpa had this, like, amazingly hard, traumatic first, 13 years of his life. Like, his mom was 13 when she had him. She was married, but in Kentucky, it was just different. So he's a 13-pound baby born to, like, a 13 or 14-year-old girl. He watched his dad die in a house fire, like, right in front of his eyes. All of these, watched his sister pass away, like, all these hard things. And I was writing this chapter, and I said, what how did you make it through that?
Mm-hmm.
How did you make it, like, how do you make it through hard things? And he said, we never had any hard things happen. Like, it was just life. They just didn't see it as that. It's like, life was just life. It was the way they experienced it as it came along. And I always think to myself, if we could just experience adversity like it's part of life and it's just, instead of avoiding it all the time, they didn't avoid it.
Yeah.
I feel like we could be so much better off. And change, of course we have to change. You can't just stay still and the world's just moving around you.
Right.
Change is a wonderful thing, but change is also, it's growth. It's uncomfortable. Lord, I know about growth right now. It's uncomfortable, but it's growing something good. So it's just, I would say, as a person having been on the other side of it and a person that used to live at the surface level where everything was good, this way of life is just so much more vibrant. The only way I picked vibrant, like in my subtitle. Vibrant is the only way that I can describe it. The joys are so much more joyful and higher. And yes, there are lows and adversity and stuff, but when you face those, it's just a different thing on the other side.
Yes. Well, and I think when you're choosing to live a life that you're like, okay, I'm gonna just dig into the hard, not for the heck of it, but to grow and to heal from things, right? So whether that's through counseling and therapy, anything, using these tools to help you understand. And I think you're exactly right, because I know for even in my story, I'm like, when I started to choose that path, probably about 8 years ago, to really start digging in, I'm like, man, there's a level of intimacy in life and in your marriage and in your friendships and in your family and relationships that when you can dig into all that.
Yes.
And like you're saying, the lows are low because you're actually engaging the lows, which is not always fun. But it brings this level of depth to your life that you're like, I never knew I could love like that.
Yes.
I never knew that pain could be this painful, but I'm choosing to engage it and all of it, right? So there's a level of that I think is so beautiful. Now, you mentioned Instagram and social media and all of that, and that's one of your big platforms that, that you use, and I think it's great. And yeah, social media, it's a love-hate thing, I know.
It is.
So how do you not compare your life to everyone else? Because comparison, it is so tough today. And I think from the outside looking in, and you do a great job, I think, of showing everyone the whole life, the good and the bad, all of it, which is great. But people could still look and be like, no, she's perfect. It's so great. And they can compare themselves to you or whatever. So how do you fight that comparison battle?
How I fight it in general is I knew I had to include this part of the story in my book. I went 8 years without sharing it, though. Even my mom's side of the family didn't know. I mean, a lot of people didn't know. There's HIPAA laws, they can't tell that I went to this treatment facility.
Sure.
No one knew. People knew I didn't drink, but also I didn't drink halfway through college. It was just somebody that I was.
Yep.
And as my influence grew, and as people loved shopping the sales I was talking about and cooking the recipes and doing Weight Watchers and all these things, buying the clothes I bought for my kids, I kept getting these direct messages from people saying things like, it seems like you wake up and you just are so happy, or I love your relationship with your husband, or they kept saying things that made me feel like they felt the life that I was living was unattainable. So I would always message back and say, I actually went through this big thing that nobody really knows about, and I chose the way that I live today. It was really hard. I almost lost my life to this time in my life. And they would be like, what? And so for 5 years, people would send me that message, and I would say, if I'm going to be any sort of, if we want to call it an influencer, if I'm holding this part of my story behind the curtain, I'm doing a disservice to every single one of the, however many millions of people across all the platforms. I'm doing them a disservice, because who knows how many people watching maybe it's a red flag like I had in the beginning of the book, or maybe it's just, they just feel fine with their life and they just feel complacent in it, and this is all there is. And I know another way to live because I went through this knockdown, drag out fight for my life. So I was like, I have to share this story. I did not have to write a book. I got 900 arms at my business like you guys have going on here. I was like, I have to write a book.
Yes.
I have to do it. So that's how I help with this world of comparison. I never want anyone to see me like that. Now, me personally, I've never really been much of a comparer. I've always been, when I went into pageants and when I did Amazing Race, I was always very different, and I was definitely never in the box. So I have never been one to really conform. I've never had that issue so much, but you do, you look at other people's life and you say, oh, it seems like it's easy. It seems. And so that's where I feel like comparison can get to. When you look at your own life and you make your your blessings become burdens, because you're looking at somebody else's and you think theirs is a little shinier. And so that's the way that I combat comparison, because I do not want to be a person that people are falsely comparing their life to. And she never went through anything hard.
Yeah.
It's my fault. I wasn't telling them the hard story. Not to say everybody's got to share their hard story. I think you have to be ready to tell it. And I'm ready to tell it, but I'm still a little nervous.
Yeah.
But then I think you check in with yourself constantly and making sure that you're not personally comparing yourself.
Yes. Yep. I love it. So
yeah.
good, Mallory. Well,
both ways.
I'm so excited. So excited for you.
Thanks.
I'm so excited for this book. But one thing I always ask my guests before they leave
Oh.
is, what is one thing that you're doing right now with money that you're enjoying?
Oh my gosh.
Making a life that you love. And it could be anything.
Well-
It could be a fun purchase you made. It can be whatever.
Okay, so we've talked all about in the other podcast that we did on my show.
Yes.
I've had this very rich journey with money, and that my family, from a very young age, they taught us about money management, about how the choices you make with your money can change the world. My family, like your family, thinks that if you can get control of your money, whether you're the wealthiest person in the world or whether you are barely making it by, you can really change your life with the way that you spend your money, share your money, save your money. So I've always been very intentional with my money. Now, I also like to buy. I do like
Hey,
things.
we like stuff around here too. It's
I know
fine.
you
We're
do. I like that
shoppers.
about you, Rachel. You can have a little hybrid between, you're a good mix of your dad and me.
Well, it's in the budget. It's always in the budget.
Yes, it is.
That's what it is.
Sometimes mine is not, but that's where it's this end of the spectrum, then Rachel, then Dave. So on this end of the spectrum, we are. So I, in this phase of my life, getting ready to have another baby, we've been really I got to have more space.
Yes.
My boys, I have a 2 and a 3-year-old little boy, and they are so totally insane and wild.
So.
And my house all of a sudden became 100 square feet, 3 weeks ago. So we've been looking for houses. And if you would have told me 4 years ago that I could be even approved to be able to comfortably buy a house in the price range that I'm looking, I would have been like, what am I doing? Something sketchy? How, that is not possible. You never think that about yourself. So that is something that's fun right now as we're looking for and closing in on buying a home. Oh. It is fun to see the fruits of your hard earned in the trenches, typing blog posts and filming YouTube videos with my sequin backdrop from Joann's Fabric, how that has evolved into a business that can support my family in this way. It's a different level that I didn't think that I would ever achieve with the online internet thing,
It's amazing. Well, I'm so excited for you. I celebrate with you. We always celebrate the wins and all of it. I would love that. Oh my gosh, love that. Well, congratulations on not just that, Mallory, but I think choosing to do the hard stuff, to walk and to share your story. A level of vulnerability is something that I think we're just missing in today's world. And when you can be honest and vulnerable with the not so good stuff, I think that people love you that much more. I really do. So I just pray such success over this book. So you guys, make sure to check out the whole stories in here, all the details of everything that we've been talking about in this interview. So Living Fully, and they can buy it
everywhere.
Wherever books are sold.
Everywhere.
And make sure to check out Mallory. She's YouTube, Instagram, all of that, and her podcast, Living Fully. So thanks Mallory. Thanks for being here.
This is fun.